Good morning and welcome to our Monday interview. This morning we have with us in the studio Commissioner Mary Ndeto from the Transitional Authority. And the reason we have her in the studio is because of the continuing controversy over the state of devolution amid claims by governors that the central or national government is trying to kill devolution. So we want to find out from the custodian and the institution charged with the effective transfer or implementation of devolution in the country under the Constitution, the Transitional Authority. So welcome, Madam. Let's start with Mategi as well on the panel. I always forget to introduce you because you're with me, man.
It's all right.
Let's start from what I would call a diagnosis. What is the state of devolution amid all these claims 1 year down the line?
I think the starting point is to understand what was envisaged in the transition process and why the government established the Transition Authority as the body responsible for coordinating and facilitating the transition to devolved system of government. And basically, the role of the Transition Authority was to facilitate transfer of power, transfer of functions, and transfer of resources from the national government to the county government. And the authority was established under an Act of Parliament, which basically sought to put preparatory measures before the county governments came on board, and that phase was the phase 1 of the transition. And the Transition Authority, in this regard, was to take stock of all the government assets and liabilities,
right,
all the human resources, both in the county and in the national government, and also analyze the functions of the national government functions, and using the 4th schedule to the Constitution, assign to various levels of government the functions that are assigned to them. The other one was to assist in the transition of staff from the national government to the county government, including issues of pensions, issues of staff welfare, and other issues. So if we can understand why we required the Transition Authority and how far it has gone in terms of transiting those 3 aspects that I've just mentioned, then we would be able to judge where are we in terms of the process.
Right. Yeah. It looks to me that the first phase of that, transferring the power functions rather to the county governments, the allocation of requisite budgets, deployment of personnel, and so on, that was the first phase.
Yes.
It looks that it seems you have accomplished that, or is that still ongoing?
Well, if I start with the functions, of course, the power was given through the elections. The birth of the county's government was through the election of the governors, of the speakers, of the members of the county assemblies. So that one, the authority had very little control, but we actually facilitated the assumption of office and ensured that services were not disrupted, right, during that transition. So when it came to transfer of functions, the authority was required to undertake an assessment before we transferred the functions and devise the 2 levels of government accordingly. We actually undertook a quick readiness assessment, right, to inform the transfer of functions.
Yes.
And at the time, we did that, the counties were very new, and they did not have the prerequisite capacity to undertake most of the functions. They were still recruiting their executive members. They were still trying to establish their administrative capacity to be able to manage the devolved functions. And they were still to settle down. They were quite new in the office. When it came to the transfer of people, using the County Government Act, the people on the ground were already deemed seconded to the county. So we had staff in the counties who were supposed to assist to ensure that services were not interrupted during the transition. Yeah. And they are still there. Those staff are still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody would say, then your work is finished. What are you still doing in office? In fact, you should be kicked out, as some MPs have proposed in the miscellaneous amendment bill that came to the House last week, proposing to phase out the Transitional Authority and replace it with the Intergovernmental Relations Committee.
I think there is misconception about what the role of the Transitional Authority is supposed to be, and the role of the Intergovernmental Technical Committee. The two were envisaged in the two acts. The two acts are completely different in that the committee is like a secretariat arm of the summit to implement the decisions of the summit. The role of the Transition Authority is totally a different role, in that we are sharing power between the two governments. Yes. We are transferring functions from the national to the county government. That one cannot be left to the two alone to decide what functions they are going to take.
The argument is that you have already performed that function of transferring the powers and functions. So what else is left?
Not really. We started with the local authority functions, the functions that were basically being performed by the local authority as required by the law. That was the initial transfer. So we transferred those functions because of the repeal of Cap 265. So those ones were transferred. The next functions that were transferred were basically the functions that were being performed by the districts.
Yes.
And we are yet to transfer the functions that are held by parastatals and other functions that the national government is still holding, which belongs to the county governments. As you are aware now, today,
yes,
the government is only supposed to concentrate on policy, on norms and standards, and of quality control.
Yes.
But there is still a lot of functions that the national government is performing, which they should not be performing.
Such as, can you give us examples?
Examples of the
functions the government is doing, the national government is doing.
If you look at, let's say, the Ministry of Devolution, for example, it is still purporting to do markets. It is still purporting to register groups. These are basically functions that are supposed to be performed at the grassroots level. If you look at
what do you mean purport?
I'm saying if
it is doing so illegally.
The work of the counties is to implement programs and projects at that level, at the nearest level to the people. So if we have a national government going to register and going to build markets in counties, that is definitely not their role.
Is that a function of the county devolved? Is that a devolved function?
Yes.
And you say groups. Are you talking about groups like the ways of the groups that are supposed to benefit from these affirmative action funds, like Ways of Fund, National Youth Development Fund, or what?
In our view, all that is county functions. What the national government needs is to come up with that policy and the mechanism of implementing those functions. When it comes to functions like the functions performed by the Kura, by the Kera, these are basically county functions. The national government is required to come up with a policy framework for transfer of those functions.
Take for instance the road construction.
Yes.
If you remove Kenya National Highway Authority for building national roads or building inter-county roads, counties cannot just build a road up to the border. You need a road. You need those institutions. Counties can only build those roads in them, which do not pass the boundaries.
That is very true, and that's why we had the three authorities under the Ministry of Roads: the Kena, the Kera, the Kura. So
you are saying those should now go to counties?
To some extent, we have to now come up with a new framework of how they are going to concentrate on the national trunk roads, and leave the county specific roads to the county governments.
But
and these discussions are ongoing, and that is where the problems are.
Road construction is a technical matter, and there is a lot of corruption. When you give counties road construction, first of all, they don't have the technology, they don't have equipment, and what is going to happen is like what they do, give somebody a contract to do a road because they have political connections, do a shouldering, they are paid. But if you have an organization like that with technical people, that's the way it works.
But these technical people are devolved. These technical people are devolved to the counties to ensure that it is done. And it's not that the national government had capacity to build road. They have always used contractors to build road. With the devolution, there is closer supervision now. It is not like the national government.
What we are doing is devolving corruption.
Not really, not really. These are values that needs to be institutionalized at both levels of government. It's not like the national government was completely clean with these contracts. It's how we are going to implement these projects. So I think the first thing is first to give various functions to the level that the functions can be performed better. They can be supervised better. People can be held accountable. Before it was, we will do this road when funds are available. We are still waiting. We are not sure who was doing the road. Now the public will be able to hold the county governments accountable for the functions that have been devolved to them.
So you haven't, I don't know whether you have answered Makali's question.
Yes.
What is it that you are doing now that keeps you in office?
We are still now analyzing the functions that we have not transferred, and basically the regional authorities' functions have not been devolved. So we are engaging various actors because these transfers are not as easy as just saying let them go. There is a lot of negotiations going on, and there is a lot of crawling back functions through these authorities you are talking about.
Which authorities do you refer to? What are these authorities?
Regional authorities.
Like?
Regional.
Like Lake Basin Development Authority.
Basins,
The parastatals.
Parastatals.
Tana River Development Authority.
Yes.
So how are
water boards, yeah.
Yeah. How are you working on devolving those functions when in fact the government is in the process of evaluating the need for those parastatals and merging some of their functions? Yeah. How is that affecting your own process of delivering those functions with the parastatal reforms? If you form a parastatal that is going to perform county functions, we are actually going to take those functions away from that authority and assign it to the relevant authority. Okay,
the fact that you are
interesting.
An authority,
so
yeah.
Okay, let us assume you're dealing with
Wasonyiro Development Authority,
or Wasonyiro Development Authority, or Tarda, or Kerio Valley Development Authority.
How do you give the function of that authority to a county?
To a county.
How?
But
Especially one, if it is cross-cutting
Yeah.
across many counties,
yeah.
it's a national parastatal. How will it be devolved to the counties? How is just explain the dynamics of how you're going to achieve this, or what the intricacies are.
The law is very clear. We are not looking at parastatals. We are not looking at ministries. We are looking at functions. What functions have been assigned to various levels? If this authority is performing functions that belong to the counties, and the counties have the mandate even to create their own regional authorities. It's not like they should use the old framework. The law is very clear how they can work. If an authority is just serving the coast region, the coast counties can come up with their own authority to manage the authority. It doesn't mean that it must be supervised or executed from the
because
national.
it's possible that those functions, some
Yes.
of those functions are national functions. Like
Yeah.
if you take, typically, for hypothesis sake, the Kerio Valley Development Authority, it is charged with the function of developing the agricultural potential within that Kerio Valley development, Kerio Valley, isn't it?
Where is Kerio?
Within it's within Wageo Marakwet, within Wasinigishu. It crosses quite a couple of counties, isn't it?
Yes.
Now that is a national function,
How?
agriculture.
How?
Agricultural development is, and research, essentially a national function, aren't they?
Let me
National
ask-
government.
So when we unbundle that, when we unbundle that, we'll see to what extent are these functions national. If they are national, we are not saying that we must give them to the county. If they are national, if we unbundle and we realize that there are aspects of those functions that are purely national and that can only be performed by the national government,
Yes.
we will assign them to the national government.
Let me ask you this.
That is our work.
Let me ask you this. The government is planning to do a 1 million irrigation scheme
In Galana.
In Galana.
Yes.